The question of where the biblical city of Sodom once stood has fascinated scholars and believers alike for centuries, but perhaps the real starting point in this mystery lies not in the ruins of a city, but in understanding the precise moment Lot, Abraham's nephew, looked toward the lush region that would change the course of his life. Scripture tells us that Lot lifted his gaze and saw that the entire plain of the Jordan was rich in water, an inviting paradise compared to the surrounding wilderness. At that moment, he was positioned in a place called Bethel. Yet from this vantage point, it would have been nearly impossible to see the southern part of the Dead Sea, even on a clear day. You might barely catch sight of its northern tip, but that's all. From there, Lot journeyed east, and the narrative takes a dramatic turn. It's written that fire and burning stones descended from the heavens, sent by the Lord, reducing the sinful cities to ash and leaving nothing alive, not a tree, not a plant, not even a single blade of grass. Among the many chilling episodes in this account, the fate of Lot's wife remains one of the most unforgettable. Her story has echoed through time as both a cautionary tale and a puzzle wrapped in mystery. According to the book of Genesis, as Lot and his family were escaping the doomed city of Sodom, they were given a strict and divine order: do not look back. Tragically, Lot's wife disobeyed. She turned to see what they were leaving behind, perhaps driven by sorrow, nostalgia, or curiosity. In that instant, she was transformed into a pillar of salt. For generations, some viewed her fate as symbolic, a metaphor meant to warn of disobedience. Others, however, have long believed this was no allegory, but a literal and extraordinary event. Could it be that remnants of that transformation still exist, preserved by time and the environment? Before we continue, if you find this journey through biblical history fascinating, consider subscribing to our channel. Your support allows us to explore ancient stories, bring scripture to life through powerful visuals, and uncover the mysteries hidden in sacred texts. The tale of Lot's wife is deeply intertwined with the greater story of Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction. Genesis 19 offers a vivid account. 2 heavenly messengers arrived and warned Lot to take his family and flee, for destruction was imminent. As they hurried away, the angels gave a single, solemn instruction: don't look back. Yet verse 26 states plainly, but Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. The wording leaves little room for interpretation. It doesn't present this event as poetic or symbolic. Instead, it reads as an actual transformation, a miraculous act that defies natural explanation. What makes the account even more compelling is the location where it occurred, near a place called Zoar, believed to be close to the southeastern shores of the Dead Sea. This leads us to a pressing question. Could there be physical or geological evidence to support this biblical moment? The region surrounding the Dead Sea, once referred to as the Salt Sea, is among the most unique geological areas in the world. Towering salt formations and mineral-rich land dominate the landscape. Here, nature sculpts eerie, almost alien environments through the forces of erosion, wind, and time. A particularly striking site lies along the western edge of the Dead Sea, known today as Mount Sodom. Despite its name, it is not a mountain of stone, but a massive structure made almost entirely of salt that has been lifted and reshaped over thousands of years by geological forces. Mount Sodom rises approximately 700 feet into the air and spans more than 5 miles in length. It's a place that continues to capture the attention of geologists and biblical scholars alike. Many researchers suggest that this location could be the very setting of the events described in Genesis. And if so, could the pillar of salt mentioned in the Bible still stand here? Interestingly, at the southern end of Mount Sodom, there exists a solitary formation, distinct, weathered, and unmistakably shaped like a human figure. For countless generations, this formation has been known as Lot's wife. It rises from the earth as if frozen in time, separate from the other surrounding formations. Its upright stance and humanoid silhouette are hard to ignore, especially when viewed from a distance. It's not difficult to imagine why such a sight would have inspired awe and speculation for centuries. While scientists acknowledge that salt pillars are naturally occurring in this region, shaped by wind erosion, rain, and shifting soil. The location and appearance of this particular structure remain extraordinary. Its presence so near the biblical site, its uncanny form, and its enduring nature make it impossible to dismiss. Some may argue that coincidence and erosion shaped it into this form, while others see it as divine preservation. Even if science refrains from confirming that this is the literal remains of Lot's wife, its symbolic weight and geographical alignment with the biblical narrative are striking. Ancient records further support the idea that this pillar held significance long before modern eyes beheld it. Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, writing in the 1st century, claimed in his renowned work, The Antiquities of the Jews, that Lot's wife was still visible in his own time. He wrote, "Lot's wife, who was disobedient and looked back at the city despite God's command, was changed into a pillar of salt. I have seen her, and she remains to this day." This testimony offers a compelling glimpse into how this story was perceived historically, not as myth, but as a documented observation. Josephus was not a writer of fables. He saw himself as a chronicler of the Jewish people's history, and his account suggests that belief in the pillar's physical existence endured into the early Roman era. Furthermore, early Christian travelers also recorded seeing the salt formation during their pilgrimages through the Judean wilderness. The story was not isolated to a single culture or tradition. Islamic texts also reference this event, indicating that it resonated across Abrahamic faiths. Genesis 19:24-26 recounts, "Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. But Lot's wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt." The location described, near Zoar and close to the valley of the Dead Sea, corresponds remarkably with modern-day Mount Sodom. Whether or not this particular pillar is the exact one that witnessed the disobedience of Lot's wife, it endures as a haunting symbol of that biblical event. Her story speaks to more than just ancient punishment. It is a lesson about trust, obedience, and the dangers of clinging to a past that has been condemned. The pillar stands unmoved, eroded yet still present, a reminder etched into the earth. It reflects a consistent theme throughout sacred history, where God uses physical places and objects to communicate spiritual truths. Think of the burning bush that spoke to Moses, the tablets of the law, the parted waters of the Red Sea, and the ark that carried God's covenant. These weren't just relics, they were signposts pointing to divine action and presence. To truly understand where the ancient city of Sodom might have been located, we need to approach the biblical narrative not simply as an abstract legend, but as a journey rooted in geographical moments. The key lies in one pivotal scene, when Lot, the nephew of Abraham, raised his eyes and looked across the expansive land. He saw that the entire Jordan Valley was lush and fertile, like a paradise carved into the desert, a striking contrast to the dry hills around him. This moment occurred while he stood in a region historically known as Bethel. However, even from this elevated vantage point, visibility would have been limited. On a day of perfect weather, one might catch a faint glimpse of the northern rim of the Dead Sea, but the southern portion would remain entirely out of view. After this observation, Lot decided to move eastward. The biblical text then presents one of its most intense scenes: fire and burning sulfur raining down from above, consuming the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah in a wave of divine judgment. According to the narrative, nothing survived. Every living creature, every plant, and every sign of life was wiped from the earth. It wasn't just a city destroyed, it was a complete eradication of life from the land. Among the many powerful images in this story, one stands out as both haunting and unforgettable: the transformation of Lot's wife into a pillar of salt. Her fate has sparked reflection, fear, and curiosity for thousands of years. This moment wasn't just about punishment, it was about a choice. According to Genesis chapter 19, God sent 2 angels to warn Lot to flee with his family. As they escaped the collapsing city, they were given a clear command: don't look back. But Lot's wife, perhaps moved by sorrow, fear, or longing, turned around to witness the destruction behind her. In an instant, she was transformed into a pillar of salt. For generations, people have debated whether this story was meant to be taken literally or symbolically. Was it a metaphor for obedience, or did it really happen? Could such a transformation leave behind something that could still be seen today? What if this wasn't just a lesson about obedience, but a real historical moment, one marked by a physical remnant that still exists? Many believe that the legacy of Lot's wife continues not just through scripture, but through the very landscape that surrounds the Dead Sea. Before we dive deeper into this idea, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Your support allows us to continue exploring the historical and spiritual depth of the Bible and bring these sacred stories to life through careful research and stunning visuals. Returning to the narrative, Genesis 19 paints a dramatic picture. The two divine messengers told Lot to leave immediately, for God was about to bring destruction upon the city. They instructed him and his family to escape to the mountains, and crucially, not to look back. Verse 26 reveals what happened next. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. The language used here is remarkably direct. It doesn't suggest a parable or figurative language. It describes a miraculous and literal transformation. The family had nearly reached safety, crossing into a place called Zoar, believed to be located near the southeastern edge of the Dead Sea. It's here that Lot's wife turned and sealed her fate. This naturally raises the question, is there geological or archaeological evidence in that region that could be linked to this event? The Dead Sea, historically referred to as the Salt Sea, is a geological wonder. It's a place where the earth itself seems to weep with mineral-rich salt and sulfur. The terrain is strange, eerie, and almost lunar. Towering salt formations emerge from the ground, sculpted by millennia of wind, erosion, and shifting tectonic plates. One particular area, known today as Mount Sodom, runs along the western side of the Dead Sea in modern-day Israel. Despite its name, this is no ordinary mountain. It is essentially a colossal ridge made of salt, pushed upwards over thousands of years. Stretching for over 5 miles and reaching nearly 700 feet in height, this massive formation is both geologically unique and biblically significant. It's within this rugged landscape that one of the most compelling discoveries can be found. At the southern tip of Mount Sodom stands a tall, solitary salt pillar, one that has long been referred to by locals as Lot's wife. This upright column stands apart from the rest of the rock formations and bears an uncanny resemblance to a human figure. From a distance, the resemblance is difficult to ignore. It rises solemnly from the mountainside, still and ghostly, as though frozen in a moment of divine judgment. Visitors often remark on how human it appears, and for generations it has been a sight of wonder and reverence. While scientists are quick to explain that salt pillars can form naturally due to erosion and environmental factors, they also acknowledge that this particular formation's shape, location, and history are highly unusual. The idea that such a formation exists in precisely the place where the Bible describes this event is enough to stir deep questions, both spiritual and historical. Even if modern science cannot affirm that this specific pillar is indeed the remains of Lot's wife, it remains a powerful visual representation of the story's message. Historical accounts further support the idea that this pillar has been associated with Lot's wife for centuries. The renowned Jewish historian Flavius Josephus, writing in the 1st century, makes mention of this exact phenomenon. In the Antiquities of the Jews, he writes that Lot's wife, having disobeyed the divine command and looked back, was turned into a pillar of salt, and that the pillar could still be seen in his own time. "I have seen it," he declared. To Josephus, this was not folklore, it was history. His words suggest that in the time of Jesus, this salt formation was recognized as a living remnant of divine judgment, still visible, still standing, and the testimony does not end with Josephus. Throughout the centuries, Christian pilgrims traveling through the Judean wilderness wrote about seeing the pillar of salt, believed to be Lot's wife. The Islamic tradition too preserves this story, describing the destruction of Sodom and the transformation of the woman who looked back. These overlapping traditions, Jewish, Christian, and Muslim, all point to a shared recognition of this striking biblical event. Genesis 19:24-26 speaks clearly. Then the Lord rained fire and brimstone from heaven upon Sodom and Gomorrah, but Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. And the location? Exactly where Mount Sodom sits today, near Zoar, adjacent to the very valley that hugs the Dead Sea. Whether or not that salt pillar is the exact figure of Lot's wife may never be proven beyond doubt. But its presence, so human in form, so hauntingly placed, remains a striking symbol. Her story speaks to the cost of hesitation, the danger of longing for what is behind us, and the consequences of disobedience. It's not only about judgment, it's about trust. Trusting in the path God places before us, and the urgency to keep moving forward when He commands us to. Much like the burning bush that spoke to Moses, the tablets of stone carried by the Israelites, or the parting of the Red Sea, the pillar of salt stands as a tangible signpost, a monument to a spiritual truth. It is nature holding memory, the earth itself bearing witness to a moment of profound divine intervention. As the winds sweep through the arid cliffs of Mount Sodom, the solitary salt pillar known as Lot's wife continues to stand in silent witness. While the centuries have passed and generations have come and gone, that stark formation remains, a statue not carved by human hands, but shaped by time, terrain, and, perhaps, divine providence. The mystery surrounding it is not only rooted in biblical tradition, but woven into the very fabric of the land itself. Whether we accept it as a direct remnant of the Genesis account or view it as a symbol sculpted by nature, its presence is undeniable. It invites every passerby, pilgrim, scholar, and seeker to stop, to wonder, and to reflect on the spiritual weight of disobedience and the cost of turning back when called to move forward. The story of Lot's wife isn't just about one woman's fate. It's a narrative that echoes through every life that has faced a crossroad between obedience and hesitation, between trust in divine direction and the pull of the familiar past. Her choice was not uncommon. Many throughout history, and even in our own lives, have paused at the threshold of change, uncertain whether to let go or to look back. Yet the outcome of her decision is what gives the story such sobering force. She wasn't punished because she was weak. She was transformed because in that crucial moment, her heart clung to what God had commanded her to leave behind. And there lies the deeper lesson. Lot and his daughters escaped to safety because they trusted the instruction without question. But his wife, driven perhaps by regret or emotional attachment to a doomed past, hesitated just long enough to be caught in the collapse of judgment. Her transformation into a pillar of salt was more than an act of divine punishment. It was a monument to the moment where human emotions stood in defiance of divine urgency. As we ponder this narrative, we also see its theological relevance stretching far beyond the Old Testament. In the Gospel of Luke, Jesus himself refers to her fate in just 3 words. Remember Lot's wife. No further explanation is given because the weight of her story speaks for itself. That brief command, uttered by Christ, holds more than a warning. It carries a profound truth about human nature. It is a reminder that when God calls us out of something, be it sin, complacency, or spiritual decay, our only response must be to follow, not to waver.